Hi, welcome to yet another exciting episode on Be Positive on etbranddegree.com. I am your host, Ambi Parameswaran Anil. I'm really excited that we have a very sweet guest here today. I'm saying sweet because he has spent all his life, I think almost all his working life, in this exciting company, which was Cadbury, and now it is Mondelez. So Anil Viswanathan, Senior Director, Mondelez, welcome to our Be Positive show.
Thank you for having me, Ambi. Very excited to be here talking to you.
So thank you. So as you know, this show is about talking to young marketing super achievers to find out how they managed their career, their education. So you did your schooling at Kendriya Vidyalaya, and was it in Chennai or was it all over India? How was your school days like? Tell us something about where you started, and the journey.
That's a nice way to start, Ambi. Kind of brings back a lot of nostalgic memories. I actually was born and brought up in Kolkata, so that's where I began, and that's where I first studied in Kendriya Vidyalaya, Paliganj in Kolkata, which is one of the central kind of KV schools.
Baliganj, I think Rush Bihari Avenue, Baliganj, right? I mean,
that's right, near Baliganj Circular Road.
So, yeah, very Tambram area. Yeah. There used to be a Komla Vilas there, right?
Absolutely. A little to the south, but yeah, not too far away. I think so. That's where I grew up. My dad was in the central government. He was from the Department of Telecom. So, of course, he had a transferable job. So he moved around. But as luck would have it, I have an elder sibling who's 7 years older than me. So after I was born, for some reason or the other, we had reason to stay on in Calcutta for a while. So I ended up staying there for the first 16 years of my life. So in many ways, like a fairly large Tambram community in Kolkata, I call myself more a bong at heart and bong by stomach. And then it so happened that in 1990, my dad was transferred to Mumbai. And that point in time, my mother, in all her wisdom, who's obviously one of the most influential people in my life, said that academics will go for a toss. If you go to Mumbai, we must go to Chennai. Chennai is the hotbed for all things academic. So I ended up
hold it. So your dad went from Kolkata to Mumbai, and your mom took you and went to Chennai. Nice.
Correct. He had already started seeing worrying signals, to say, I need to take matters in my own hands, and this guy is going nowhere and all of that. So one of our family friends had also got transferred to Chennai, and he had a wonderful experience. As you know, there was in the late 80s, early 90s, there was our own quota factory in Chennai. It was very, very well established. So the feeling was that I would benefit from the ecosystem there. So I went over to Chennai and kind of was staying with my aunts for a couple of years to do my higher secondary, and that's where really I got exposed to Tamil. And as the joke goes, I remember the first day in school when I came to Chennai in KVCLRI, which is again a very nice Kendriya Vidyalaya in Chennai. And one of my classmates asked me, "So what are you, Iyer or Iyengar?" So I looked at him like that. Because I'm from Calcutta, I didn't know any of those contexts. He said,
"This."
So he said, "Is it this or this?" I said, "This." Okay. So that's where my Tamil indoctrination started, and I had to have a rapid learning curve in the language and all of that. And thanks to traveling in the local PTC buses, I kind of picked up that language quickly. But
yeah, so that's it. Okay, hold on. Any fond memories of Kolkata, traveling in the train, eating golgappas?
Lots and lots. I mean, lots and lots. I grew up in this area called Golf Green, which is closer to Tollygunge. It is a kind of up and coming place, mostly kind of the DDA equivalent. So kind of government housing society, the typical public servants, and so very like-minded community where of course the friendships we nourished kind of continued over life. How Calcutta is, that even if you go after 10 years, people think as if it was you met them only yesterday, and come in, have a cha and all that. So I think that's.
And in Calcutta, nothing much changes, right? Same old tram, same old ambassador, taxis.
Absolutely. And the memories are that, that's where, I used to, for all my friends' birthdays is where I got exposed to, the March culture and the non-veg culture, and, obviously formative experiences in cuisine, formative experiences in art, formative experiences in sport. mad love of sport, and lots of interesting memories of Kolkata. I mean, kind of very, very formative in terms of making me curious, inquisitive, interested in stuff. I think that's a lot of it has come from my childhood in Kolkata.
Okay, you were telling us about Chennai and how you were adjusting to the horizontal, vertical.
Correct. Fault lines. But yeah, I think it was a very different jump, but it was a very nice jump again. I mean, it was kind of a very, very regimented program, and it was all about preparation for the famous JEE. And I had my maths classes and my physics classes and my chemistry classes, and life was actually all about these classes, and school was fun. And thankfully, it was very nice in that sense that from a cultural standpoint, I'm hugely indebted to my teachers there. They gave me the freedom and didn't put too much pressure on me. And I could focus on my academics at that point in time. It was kind of single-minded. That's the reason I had come to Chennai. So we were all very focused on that, and great fun. I mean, intense, but that point in time, my aunt and my uncle at that point in time had retired recently, and he had picked up a place. And in those days, in the early 90s, it was in the back and the beyond. It was called OMR. I mean, little did we know that 20 years later it will become the IT hub.
Yeah. OMR is, for viewers who don't know, is known as the old Mahabalipuram Road.
Correct.
Mahabalipuram, of course, is famous for its seashore temples, and there used to be the OMR, which is Old Mahabalipuram Road, and then there's the East Coast ECR, right? East Coast Road.
So, ECR was the cool place where all the cool people used to hang out, and OMR was the bonduks. And it has still vivid memories of having to walk about 1.5 kilometers in the dark from the bus stop to my uncle's house, where there's nothing else. I mean, there's no other means of transport. And most weekdays, our classes will end at 9 p.m. in Mount Road, and you have to take a bus. And so, great fun, very adventurous. But as I said, you almost blinkered to ensure that you just go through the sausage machine to come out as a.
But did you have any other thoughts, or was it? Did you say that no? Actually, I'd like to do filmmaking, or I'd like to do CA, something like that, or was it?
Not at all strict. I think early on in career, I think in school, once you're kind of at a certain level of proficiency in academics, it kind of tends to become a kind of a fairly straightforward path. And then my mother is the youngest of 7 siblings, and fairly illustrious cousins, right? Who then kind of the pressure to achieve is quite clear, saying so and so, and look where he has gone, and that's what you need to aspire for. So I think the aspirations were quite clear. I mean, the path was well set, and the closest cousins are all ended up in fairly well-reputed institutions.
IIT Madras, which engineering did you take?
I took up mechanical engineering, not by choice, but what my rank offered. And I had my cousin, sister, and a husband who was a professor in IIT Kanpur.
And then from IIT, did you work, or did you go straight to Joka?
No, I didn't. I think very early on, IIT, very early on, Ambi, you then realize, for once, when you have liberty and freedom to say, okay, now what do I want to do? I think the first things that come to you is to say, what do you not want to do? And some things became very clear to me. I think, for example, to say advanced studies and research wasn't particularly of interest. Of course, there was that was the kind of a large group that was going in that direction. And I said, okay, I mean, worth exploring, but it was not really, my mind wasn't set on it. Definitely felt that I should work for some time. And was looking out for opportunities, and just like typical risk-averse approach, we said, okay, CAD we likh do. So we wrote CAD also, and again had precedence in the family of people gone to that path. So we said, cover your bases. So hence wrote CAD, and it not really wasn't particularly keen. I mean, it wasn't my first choice. I think it was my second. And the first was, those days there was this fairly popular in-campus hiring from these oil exploration firms, Schlumberger and Halliburton.
Schlumberger.
Correct.
Was it very hot as a job?
reasonably hot, primarily because you get paid in dollars and you are posted outside India. Obviously, slowly the news came in that you're pretty much in the rig and doing hardcore engineering jobs, but it had its fair amount of allure. And at least for the sake of getting some work experience, I got placed in Halliburton. As luck would have it, 1998 was the Gulf crisis.
I think the business schools are caught in this quandary. So, I mean, it's easy for them. They got so many people wanting to join. They can easily turn off the tap and say, sorry, anyone with zero work experience will not look at you. We need at least 3 years work experience, whatever. They can do that very easily. But I'm told a lot of companies say, no, actually, we prefer these younger people because we can mold them better. Right? Would you subscribe to that?
I think, it's possibly a good exploration on demand and supply, and I haven't given it a thought in terms of kind of influx and outflux, in terms of how many opportunities for outgoing engineering students, and how many can be placed and what are the options, and I haven't given it a thought in that context. Speaking of it from a student's context, given our educational background and the way we've grown up, exposure is a very, very important point. And I think today, for example, when I go to campus, I do feel that kids are much more exposed, clearer about what they want to do, possibly would have done a few internships beyond what their college asked them to do. But even despite that, I've just spent a few years outside India. When I look at life outside India and here, just the degree of supervision that we go through in our younger days, and the way the academic system is designed, unfortunately, not enough focus on exposure. So I think in that context, I do feel from an individual perspective, nothing like internships and work experiences to broaden your horizon, so that at least you know what you're getting into, whereas you have no clue, right? So even in IMC, I ended up majoring in marketing, finance, and ops, and then did a minor in economics because clearly didn't know what to do. As luck would have it, he was interested in marketing all the while, enjoyed marketing, and in the Russian roulette of placements, ended up not getting anywhere in the first few days. And I had meanwhile there was this famous HSBC assessment center, which somehow found fit in me, and I had almost signed off to join HSBC. And my parents were happy. Okay, my son is going to a multinational bank, and everybody's happy and all that. And as luck would have it, day 3 or day 4 is when Cadbury came to campus, and my wingmates knew that I was very keen on marketing, so they insisted that I go. And things happened, and I got in there. And
this is actually quite. What was wrong with these IMCAL placement types? Why did they put Cadbury on day 3? Yeah?
It was kind of those days, for whatever reason. I think we didn't have too much of alumnus at that point in time from IMC. Anand Kripal had not yet joined.
Okay.
Bharat Puri was A, Sanjay Purohit was B, there was a Molly was Excel. I think we didn't have too much of a legacy in C till Anand came in. And then,
but I think even then, Cadbury never had a campus culture. Correct. I don't think they used to recruit. So in the IMCAL, anything you remember from what you, out of the batch of 250, whether half of them were with WorkX, half without WorkX, how was the batch like?
Our batch was possibly a little bit more indexed towards freshers than normal. I think they had experimented with our senior batch, which is A, larger batch, but B, also with a more amount of WorkX. And to your point, they did find placements a bit more difficult. So I don't know whether there was an intentional bit. IMCAL also traditionally used to have a greater salience of engineers.
Yeah.
So I think that was kind of the demographic kind of thing, and about 28 women out of the batch of 280.
So anything you remember from there, from any good professors, any good courses?
Fantastic. Especially on the marketing side, was obviously, there were, firstly, the cute couple of Ash Chats and Lynn Chats, who kind of Leena Chatterjee, who used to teach behavior science, was obviously one of the most popular teachers of those times.
She continues to be. Multiple generations of people I've talked to. Lynn Chats, you call her, I call her Leena. But amazing. Amazing. I think used to teach what? Management of self or something like that, right?
No. She used to teach behavior sciences, so proper behavior sciences.
Okay.
And she used to, I mean, at least in those days, I don't know whether she's teaching other subjects, but yeah, basically core OB is what she used to teach, which is very interesting. And her projects were also very interesting. And then her husband, Ash Chatz, was an operations wizard, right? And great time he used to have in his classes because, he used to be a chain smoker. He used to smoke in class and he used to pass around cigarettes. And by the time we started getting into more advanced courses, there would be 5 or 6 people in class. And we had an ongoing conversation over cigarettes and tea. So that was the kind of class that he used to have. Fantastic guy. Very, very good in abstract. And kind of at some point in time, advanced supply chain theory also gets into advanced math. That's where engineering. So it's a little bit of fun. You don't know why you're doing what you're doing, but it seemed fun at that point in time. And then, of course, we had a new marketing professor who had just joined called Abhinandan Mukherjee. And he was very good. He was from IIM Ahmedabad, a postdoc in IIM Ahmedabad when he came in. Very ambitious and well organized. And he taught marketing very well. We, of course, we had left-leaning economics faculty, which is very famous.
Amitabh Bose and the gang.
Amartya Sen and all of them. So I think it is. You could see that they were eminent. Some of them stuck in time, but very eminent. But truth be told, academics was not what I would remember my 2 years in IIM for. I think it's possibly the kind of friendships we made, the kind of exposure we had with people, the kind of fun we had, and then eventually some perspectives in terms of what are you good at, and what are you readying yourself for in the outside world eventually. I think that's what we go back. I mean, kind of formative years in terms of figuring out who you are as a person in that sense.
So when you came out, you decided to relinquish an HSBC job, which probably paid you a lot more, and joined Cadbury.
And more than that, my brother was gutted. I remember because my brother was also a senior. He was from the 30th batch, and he was obviously advising me all the way. And he obviously clearly wanted me to avoid missteps like getting into a ad agency or an FMCG firm, because that's kind of, in terms of CTC, kind of come right at the bottom. But and he was kind of keen. I mean, clearly finance and investment banking was his guidance, and he was kind of giving me a lot of. And he was happy that I was doing a finance major. So I obviously hadn't told them. So I signed up and I signed off and all of that. And then the next day morning or late that evening, I called them. They were aghast. They didn't know what I chose. I said, look, I mean, this is what I think is good. It's a good company. Everybody says, etc., etc. I'd done my summers in J&J. That was also a very fascinating experience.
So how was the journey so you're one of those rare IIM types who I think spent your full, 15, 16, 17 years in one company?
21.
Wow, 21.
Only job, given the fact that I had worked before. So only job ever. And, as I like to say it, in my case, in others' cases, people have to change jobs. In my case, I didn't have to, because my company changed thrice. So from Cadbury to Kraft to Mondelez, obviously also three very different experiences and 3 very different entities. But I think, as I like to say, I haven't grown with the company and haven't had reason to quit. So I think when I joined the company, we were 500 crores. I mean, we talk about startups and how they can scale up and, what are the benefits of it. In many ways, it took its time, but we've grown with the company. And today it's more than, almost getting close to 20x of its size. So, that provides you with the opportunity, right? So maybe the timing was right. We gotten into the boom period where categories were slated for growth, investment was leading to growth.
What was your first job in Cadbury? The first day when you walked in, were you told to handle 5-star or one of those shady brands?
I think we used to have a management trainee program there. So the first 9 months you're a trainee. Basically, it's you're licensed to do whatever you want and go through the stints of you're in the head office hanging around. Then you go to sales, and sales is good fun because you really you live the life of a salesman, you live the life of a merchandiser, you live the life of a delivery boy.
Where did you go? Were you sent to Rajasthan, Bihar?
My most memorable, I was very lucky. So and that remains my most memorable experiences early on, which is that After the first month in the kind of initial stint, I got sent my first sales stint as a trainee to Savantwadi in Sindhudurg district. And Sindhudurg district
Tell
is
us
the
where it is.
southernmost
Where
district
it
of
is.
Maharashtra.
Okay.
So adjoining Goa. So the station that comes before Margao is Savantwadi. It's one of the most beautiful districts of Maharashtra. I was in June, the peak of monsoon. Alfonso mangoes still available, and fantastic and very tough territory, but great
Were you
fun.
working or did you go on a holiday?
Working, working, and doing the hard yards. And those are the days in a small village called Kankavli, small town called Kankavli, which is the district headquarters. In a small lane, collecting orders, starting to filling up the daily call sheet which is expected of a trainee. And suddenly you wonder, is this what I, is this what my 6 years of education takes me here? And I was like, but enjoyed the experience a lot. We worked, obviously trained under an experienced guy called Gustad Wadia. I am forever indebted to him. I learned sales from him for, it was just 3 months early on, but I learned a lot from him. And then post that, rotated into other stints. We had a very interesting stint in our training stint those days. We used to have an institutional sales stint during Diwali, because Diwali is a big sales for us, corporate sales. That was an interesting stint, because then you had to go knocking on the doors of corporates saying, please buy my gift hampers. And those days you say, you run your business. Each of us are given a city and a bunch of 50 trainees and say, you guys have to lead it and build and generate sales. So it was first experience of getting a target saying, you're handling West, you know, to give me 10 crores of Diwali orders and go find out. And then working with executives, the first sales experience, it was great fun. But it's only for 3-4 months, but it used to give us a lot of lovely memories of early on. And then moved on to sales. The first stint as area sales manager was this wonderful state of Kerala.
That's good, but how did you manage the sales guys? Because there the sales manager reports to the sales guys, right?
Oh God, it's like crazy. It was amazing. 2 years again in Kerala, which is again one of the toughest states to work on, but great state to work for categories like ours, because high disposable income and you just love to sell. You go to the stores. It's unlike, say, if you go to upcountry West Bengal or Orissa. You have to. What do you need to visit 10 stores to sell? You can sell in a store in Kerala. So that's the joy of working in Kerala. But of course, culturally, how they are, unionized and everything, and very anti being told what to do, and very clear of what they want to do. Shut the door at 5 and then get to the next bar, and so they're very clear about their priorities in that sense.
There is an interesting little news item which came. Since you worked in Kerala, I should share this. There's a news item which came, said that the Kerala medical reps have given a written complaint to the health minister that they are not being allowed to go into hospitals to detail their pharmaceutical brands to the doctors. I almost choked when I read this, because first of all, it's damn difficult to get these guys to go and detail the product to any doctor. Now they're complaining. Hospitals are stopping us from entering. We want to go and we want to work hard. We want to detail our product. I said, wow, the world has changed here. I mean, this is amazing. So was it Kerala was 2 years? Was it Kochi based or was it Kochi?
It was Kochi based. It was very nice. It was a great experience. Tough, but we, learned a lot. I think luckily in my early stints, whether it's sales and then, whether it's in marketing, one of the things that happened to me very soon on in my career is some dramatic failures. So that helped me understand.
Tell us about those dramatic failures.
No, I mean, it's very simple. In sales, is the most dramatic of failures is to not deliver your numbers, right? So in the third or fourth month that I was responsible for, I think, I was still naive, green behind my ears. So, it was the last day of the month and, I had to say 100 and I ended up doing 92. Then I said, we tried our best, did 92 and then, shut the doors and went home and slept. And the Saturday after this, I think it was on Saturday, and then Sunday afternoon, I get a call from my boss. He's a very interesting guy, called Soumitra Sengupta, a very reputed guy. He said, hello, hi, how are you? I said, I'm fine. And he said, what are you doing? I said, I just woke up from my sleep. I was late last night. So he said, so do you know how much you've sold so far? I said, I've sold 92. What was your target? I said, 100. So then he said, so why are you sleeping on a Sunday afternoon? I said, I have done as much as I could. What do you mean I've done as much as I could? You have a target, you need to deliver a target. I mean, is that not what you've been taught? I mean, where have you been trained? I mean, do you have a fake MBA degree or something like that? I think you faked an MBA. I was like, what's going on here? And he just said, used a few choice words, and he said, brush your teeth and head straight. And we have so much to do, and please figure out, call your team. And so there's a very interesting learning in sales to say, there is the target is kind of one of those things that uh, defies all logic. And when you have taken the target, you realize very early on, saying that what does taking a target mean? You
which
can't
is
take a
why
target.
which is why there is this whole give and take between sales and marketing, and then later between the general sales, national sales manager and regional manager, because it's a whole bargaining thing which is going on, right? And then that once you've taken the budget target, then you have to deliver it. And in your case, probably you inherited the target.
That's right.
From your predecessor.
That's right. Absolutely. And you realize then year in, year out, it is the fine art of target management that happens in boardrooms, right? You want to commit to the street to get your share price up, you need to deliver your target. So it's all the same. It's just how do you convert it into a fine art, and how do you use your experience to say what you can do and what you can't do, how much you need to do, what you need to do. So it's so early on you realize.
After sales, you moved. You went abroad, right? You went to work in Zurich.
I did. That came much later. I think after my sales stint in Kerala, then I went to TN. I was based out of Chennai and managing TN, which is again an interesting experience. Similar in terms of trade being a little bit difficult to manage, but a good learning experience of managing
Chennai, you'd have been a king. Cadbury, Bonvita, they're all very highly respected brands in Tamil Nadu, right?
I mean, yes, but so is Britannia Milk Bikis, and so is
so is Horlicks. Yeah, you're second to Horlicks. That I understand.
Okay, and Bonvita isn't the strongest in the south, so it's. But it was again a good experience, extension, but a good experience. We are in the branch headquarters, so you're close to the branch leadership. You got a little bit more perspective of how a branch is run, etc. And then I came to marketing, and then of course marketing I had the kind of the standard path, managing some smaller brands, then getting into the bigger brands, managing a portfolio of brands, etc. And
who was your boss in marketing, Sanjay?
I used to report to Narayan Sundaraman. You'll possibly know Narayan. Narayan used to report to Sanjay. Sanjay was the skip level. He was the marketing director. But 2004 to 10, 4 to 11 was possibly the formative years through which we learned all marketing. It was a very, very strong marketing company under Bharat and Sanjay. Then later on by Molly and Narayan. And I mean, over a period of time, and that was a time when we started the Meetha journey, our gifting story. Some of our brands had our best campaigns. So I think it was a great learning on how to build a category, how to grow a category, how to establish a brand, how to drive incrementality, balance between core and innovation, all that stuff. I think it was a great learning ground, and just grew through it. And as when I was at my peak in marketing, thinking I'll do more, and suddenly there was this interesting push that came from Sanjay and Narayan that we want you to work in strategy. So I said, okay, what does that entail? So I said, no, this is it's a role where you're going to work on new projects, and you're going to work with the senior leadership on strategy.
And if you remember, our analysis of Cadbury was pretty lethal at that time. It was a company which had 2 campaigns a year. Remember? That's it. One Cadbury brand campaign and one Diwali campaign, right? And that kind of shook you guys up a bit. And of course, I think you guys quickly learned that Hershey is not a competition. Mars is a bigger competition. And then you launched your, I think Silk, right?
Silk was already in the mix, but we accelerated and kind of got Silk ready and out of the doors almost at that point in time was a preemptive strategy to ensure that we occupy the space that Galaxy could copy. And then, of course, the rest is history now. It's possibly one of the most successful premiumizations that we've done in the category. But the origins of it came there, and also our 5-star business and what we call our count line business, internally, the bars business. And, that got a priority and that got a fillip. And it was, 5-star has always been a quirky brand, but just kind of giving it the competitive context to ensure that there is a runway for it to grow, and now how that portfolio is also picked up and scaled up. So I think some very interesting takeaways there. So that, strategist team came out of the blue, and it was, I was making campaigns, and here I had to, manage multiple Excels and, PowerPoint and strategic discussions. And you know how Anand is and Mauli are, like, uh, the eye for detail and the rigor that was required was crazy. I mean, those are the days when my PowerPoints used to be version 34 and version 27. And but again, understood framing of issues, ability to get into the detail, but yet have the big picture, convert that into.
That is always a problem, big picture, small picture, big picture, and then going into minutiae and then pull back into big picture. I think very few people can do that simultaneously, right? And I think Mauli and Anand are good guys to work with to learn that. So,
and just building that interlinkage, so you never lose the sight of the big picture, but you're never ever lazy enough to say I'll stay only at that level, and you're always relentless towards ensuring that there is execution to the last level of the employee, and the ability to communicate that so that everybody understands that even if my task is X, how it adds up to the big picture. Just makes the organization almost in such beautiful sync. Always felt that you're very clear where you're headed, and everybody's headed in that direction. Just builds a sense of unity, and I think a great learning experience there, out of the blue. So wasn't anticipating that, and kind of in retrospect made me come out of my comfort zone and made me into a more strategic thinker, and added some more kind of heft to the way I was thinking. And it so happened coincidentally that in 2010, as part of my strategy stint, is when we got acquired by Kraft. Again, a very interesting experience, because a few months before Kraft, we were intensely making strategy documents to defend Cadbury and how Cadbury wanted to defend itself, and then it was a hostile takeover, right? And then the takeover happened, and then Kraft. So it's a beautiful transition from a slow, hierarchical stiff upper lip Brit company to a brash, aggressive, ambitious American company. It was very interesting. Thankfully, again, we had some because Anand had significant amount of credibility in the market, and we had great performance. And it so happened that in Kraft we had Sanjay Khosla.
That's old Unilever, alumni.
That's right. Yeah. And again, Pradeep Pant, who was again a legendary kind of a leader from. So
I remember
that happened.
I should tell you this. I remember. I think your regional head of HR was an old friend of mine.
Right.
Kalpana Natisin, Kalpana Pratap.
Okay, interesting.
Anand calling me saying, "Yaar, she knows you. How do you know her? Tera batch hai?" I said, "Yeah, mera batch hai," and she's been with Kraft and for a long time. So he said, yeah. She's like our regional HR boss. So again, I am Cal, my batch.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So I think it was very interesting at that point in time. What happened at that point in time, because the acquisition just happened and they were looking at synergies, and India was a great example of synergy where Cadbury was strong and Kraft wanted to come in. So I remember February 19th, something.
Like Kraft not be able to come in. Kraft had been a disaster in India, right? If you remember, right. It was Kraft General Foods came into India in 1978 or 79 or 82 or 83. I remember being, talked when they launched Tang. It flopped like hell.
Correct.
And they could never make a success out of India.
I guess the whole setup at that point in time also. I don't think they invested in the setup at that point in time for just the basics of setting up distribution, right? So I think that becomes a very important bit. So circa February 19th, 2010, they came in and said, you know what? We want you to launch Oreo in 2010. We give you 6 months, launch Oreo. So then, in that sense, the right place, right time. And we said, I became part of the team, and Molly was chosen, and, we said, okay, we'll work together to launch Oreo. That was possibly one of the more memorable experiences of my life, to say how we launched Oreo, because again, we've never made biscuits before. We have no background. Here is a black colored American cookie. Nobody likes the color black in India. And of course, our going in, because we knew our marketing and you were obviously extremely aggressive to say, we can't launch it black. You have to make it brown. You have to make it less bitter, etc., etc. And these guys came and said nothing doing. But
Global
beautiful,
brand.
beautiful,
Global brand.
global brand. And I think, but the good thing was, I think they had lots of data, lots of experience in market. A fantastic, fantastic marketing lesson, right? And they showed us the fact that look, market after market, it will fail the product test. We leave the product at home for a month and see how it grows, and then put it into the market and see how it grows. Beautiful, beautiful.
It's not for nothing, Anil. You know that it's not for nothing that Oreo is the #1 cookie brand in the world. And, as you know, FCB worked on that brand for something like 50 years or something like that, and done some completely legendary campaign.
And then here, of course, working with Nitin and Joe Taliyat, and then continuing to work with FCB Draft at that point in time, a wonderful experience. And it was also legendary because of the work they've done in Oreo globally. That just the immersion that we got onto the brand. And again, our chocolate business, the way we built a strategy was very strong on strategy. We were looking for that, and there was nothing. And you're wondering, okay, is it going to pick up or not? But just the distinctiveness, I mean, you think about distinctiveness of a brand and how it drives preference. It is a wonderful case study, right? And then it's just
to bring it alive. Some brands get into popular culture, right? And I think I tweeted, or maybe I should tweet, that there is a penguin in our Bombay Zoo, which is called Oreo. Can you imagine the love? And that the brand is new, right? That brand is what? 10 years old in this country. It's already part of your popular culture that, the zookeeper goes and names a black and white cute little penguin Oreo. It's an amazing success which you guys have been able to achieve, and the idea of calling it Cadbury Oreo, which I think is not done in any other country in the world, right? So
that's right. And I mean, that took a little bit of convincing, but I mean, we're quite clear that it's an opportunity for us. So,
and by the way, Anil, Cadbury had tried launching a Britannia, a Bonvita biscuit many years ago.
That's right.
And it had flopped. So
there's some background to it as well to say.
So you guys had never succeeded in biscuits, and I think it was a big surprise to everyone the way you came and stormed the market and took the top end.
Yeah, and it became like a pre-post, right? If you see a pre-Oreo and a post-Oreo, I think that period of time, 2007, 8, 9, 10, that is the period when Sunfeast, ITC also got into biscuits. We came to biscuits. And now you go to a biscuit aisle, you won't recognize it from what it was when we grew up. Those 4 or 5 biscuits that we grew up with, that it's a Parle G.
Bourbon and Jib Jam.
Right. So I think a great story, great learning experience of kind of bringing such an iconic global brand and making it begin in a country. So I think it was a big, great learning experience.
Anil, you were saying that you also did a stint in strategy in Zurich. How was that experience?
So, I mean, as I was saying, Ambi, after the experience of launching Oreo, I kind of got back into chocolate. I was doing a little bit of chocolate marketing at that point in time. After Kraft, really, we started realizing that we have many opportunities, and we were then at that point in time organized as a category organization. So there was a large global category organization that was working on kind of the global agenda, and I had an opportunity to get into the global chocolate team. It was being run by Bharat, and Bharat had moved from India, and he had built a team over the years. So I think we got the opportunity to get in there, and they're quite different from the Oreo experience. I had a very interesting experience in chocolate, where I had on the segment that I was working on the bars segment. Right. And one of the mandates that I got for myself, firstly, I had to convince the leadership, and then I got was to expand 5-star into other markets. So it's a very different experience. So 5-star is a very heritage brand in India. It doesn't exist anywhere else.
It's an India only brand, is it?
It is an only India only brand. It exists only in India. And the caramel bar, basically across the world, it's driven by Mars. It's a Mars bar. It's only in India where we kind of set it up, and it was successful. So that was a wonderful experience. I ended up launching 5-star in Brazil and South Africa and Southeast Asia, Egypt. So that was a great experience. We realized that was going well. So we said, okay, now how do we take on Snickers? Then sitting in Zurich, I also worked on this new brand called Fuse, which we then launched in India first, and now we are now taking it into Southeast Asia. So a very different experience for the first time ever, kind of working in other markets, different cultures, based out of Zurich, of course. So kind of a strong European influence, and Europe is a big chocolate market for us. So interesting. I mean, I was focused, of course, on international markets per se. So a lot of it was kind of a little bit more international, but day-to-day working was in the European business. It was a very different learning experience working in.
How was it culturally? How was it working, moving from India to going and working in?
Very tough, very tough. And then very soon realize, what kind of blind spots we get, right? So all the things that we think are our strengths are the ones that we overuse, right? So we overanalyze, talk too much, don't listen clearly, very eager to contribute, not necessarily the most easy to collaborate with. And what we think as things that make us very sociable and affable could be in other cultures very off-putting, because you're too put on, you're too open, you're too intrusive, and people might be a little bit more circumspect. So different cultures not responding very differently. We also found that there are some cultures which are non-native English, where again the way they think is very different, right? So the Portuguese think very different. I mean, they tend to warm up very slowly. They are again a very, very social country, but they warm up much more slowly. Or the Chinese, where you suddenly realize when you're testing in China, like doing concept testing in China, Ambi is fantastic. When you do concept testing in India, you struggle for words because English is not necessarily the most expressive. And then, you struggle for words like rich. And when you think about rich and intense or discerning, the richness with which the Chinese express every single word is fantastic. And the way you can do concept testing there, and the way you have to get one word right, otherwise it goes in another direction. So just learning non-native English markets, how the language works, how that leads to different ways in which people express themselves, different ways in which brands express themselves. So very fascinating, very eye-opening. I learned a lot. And I think when I came back to India, I was able to see, hence, how I've changed as a person, really.
How was it living in those countries? Was it?
We are three, a family of three, me, my wife, and my daughter. She's 13 now. When we moved to Zurich, my daughter was 7. So she was still quite young. Again, a fascinating experience. You obviously then become much more closer as a family unit, especially when you go to Europe, which is not really very, very social and not very welcoming. You end up spending a lot of time with each other. So we made as a family unit much more closer, much more in love with the outdoors.
Did you take up skiing?
We did. We finally end up realizing that the only one of the best ways to socialize is to link with school. And then that links to the activities that your child does, you kind of tag along. So if your daughter's going skiing and you're driving all the way in the winter and you're all bundled up, you don't want to sit inside. You say, okay, we'll also try. And it was again a great experience. That's something that we've tried to keep alive even after come back to India, to say, go back there to ski at least. So
are you taking a ski holiday every year? Or are you planning to take a ski holiday?
Unfortunately, 2020 and 2021 is a little bit of a washout, but 18 and 19 we did manage. And I think
nice.
Really nice. Also go back to meet old friends and colleagues there as well. So just try to keep those relationships going. I think that's one of the things that we really enjoyed. We were able to build some very nice relationships. Then you get, very interesting perspectives. Not everybody is career obsessed. Not everybody is obsessed about what their next role is.
Do you want to talk anything about we did speak about several of your mentors. Anyone else you want to talk about what he taught you or what she taught you?
I think, as I said early on, influenced by my mother in terms of the desire to achieve and to go and overcome challenges and be committed to get what you want to get. But then from a work standpoint, I think really the collegiate atmosphere that we created, where we were able to learn from each other. I think one of the things that we really had the pleasure of being, we were in an environment where as a group of marketers, we took pride in each other's success. Sometimes, quite often, I see people compete with each other a lot. I have to succeed at the cost of somebody else. And somehow we created an environment where we enjoyed each other's success and grew along almost. And we had the opportunity, I guess, at that point in time also. So I think that environment, it was not just an individual, but we coined that coined a term called the decaders, all those who had finished 10 years in Cadbury at that point in time. And the decaders group even today exists in WhatsApp, and we still stay connected, learn from each other, share each other, became close friends in that sense. I think that group really provided a lot of inspiration. A lot of what I am and the way I operate today comes from that kind of school of thought. And I think through that, it's just amazing set of people through which I've been able to learn, from Bharat Puri to Anand Kripalu to Sanjay Purohit to Molly. I think who've been kind of very, very influential. And then even now, I think of late, with Manu Anand, who was my interim boss when I came back from Zurich, and then Deepak Iyer, with whom I work today very closely over the last 4 years. Just privileged to see so many different management styles. Then you understand that there is not one. Sometimes we get indoctrinated to say this is the only way of being. There's so much to absorb and then assimilate and really pick up. And just allows me to learn and develop myself rather than being dogmatic about this is the right way or this is the only way to operate. I've just been able to assimilate, thankfully, and that's been kind of the big influence. And I guess now, I mean, through the last few years in post-COVID, I think when I see my wife, who's a non-profit, who chose to then go into we coincidentally met in Cadbury. So she was a junior who had also joined from Bangalore, sales and marketing, dreamy eyed, etc. But over a period of time, chose to firstly tend to her daughter, and then chose to move into consulting, and then eventually said, I want to do something which is meaningful. And when I see somebody in the development sector, just again gives you a lot of grounding to say there's so much to be done. We obsess about our jobs and what we do. And especially post-COVID, when the divide and the gap is just going wider and wider. Just when I see my wife and what she's been doing in Mumbai in her NGO in Sneha, just inspires me to say at least there aren't two of us who are in a rat race, and there's somebody who's doing something meaningful. I think
you're putting bread on the table, right? And so
yes, of course. I take a lot of passion, and delivering our jobs well and scaling up Mondelez in India fills me with passion. But just, there's more to it than just a corporate life. So I think that's the other motivation that keeps me going.
I want you to now tell us about your favorite. You told us about skiing, so I want to know about your favorite comfort food.
Favorite comfort food is fuchka.
The Calcutta puchka,
no others that masquerade to be and fail, epic fails as you would call it these days. But it's the Calcutta puchka and the Calcutta jhalmudi any day. And there could be many, but I'm instinctively responding to this.
And but the Calcutta puchkas, where favorite place is what? Outside Newmarket or Condition Market?
Camac Street.
Street.
There's Camac Street and there's Russell Street as well. There's a guy in Russell Street who's also very, very famous.
Now coming to something else like, OTT series or books or music or podcast or something you can
all
talk
of them.
about.
OTT series, Drive to Survive, Formula One Drive to Survive is the one that we've seen most recently. Fantastic case study. Beautiful series, firstly. Amazingly edited and story told. And if you, from a marketing perspective, has a fascinating story of how Formula One has been declining. Viewership has been declining over the years, and it's getting to be only the older cohorts who've been seeing it. And these 3 years, 2018, 2019, and 2020, these 3 seasons dramatically transformed the viewership of Formula One. Fabulous series to watch. Books, quite a lot to talk about, but I think a good balance between non-fiction and fiction. But I think some of the classics continue to inspire, and that kind of, whether it's a Graham Greene or a Steinbeck or a Murakami, I think are kind of...
Murakami keeps coming in our discussions.
Absolutely. I think he's so prolific and so contemporary. But having said that, I've taken a lot of interest of Indian fiction in English. I think if you remember, there's a guy called Pondi Mohan in IIT Madras who used to teach English, and he used to teach a wonderful subject called Indian fiction in English. So beautiful.
Really? No, he's after my time.
Fabulous. It was very nice course, and right from then, love for. Earlier also in Calcutta, I used to love reading a lot, but reading has remained fancy. But Indian fiction more recently, so Amit Chaudhary,
Amitabh Ghosh. How can you not say Amitabh Ghosh?
Correct. And the likes Alan Silly, G.V. Desani, Vikram Chandra, the works, lots. Podcasts. There's a very nice podcast that I listen to called the High Performance Podcast, which is in America, which is an English podcast, which talks about athletes and performers and CEOs and really probe their life story. And they start with the question, what does high performance mean to you? Really, really nice, very inspiring. And before that, of course, Revisionist History by
Okay, that
Malcolm
is your
Gladwell.
Malcolm Gladwell is like mandatory listening, right? Yeah.
And then, of course, more recently or more closer home, Amit Verma, Seen and the Unseen, of course,
Yeah.
I'm sure quite often. Or this one's, I forget his name, Play to Potential. Again,
Deepak Jairam. Yeah.
Deepak Jairam, a very nice series that you heard. Molly also featured that and very nicely interviewed there.
Yeah, Deepak does a great job. He's featured me as well. So finally, last advice to a young marketing executive or an MBA student about how to manage their life and career journey. Some last bit of advice, especially many of them are going through all this stress and tension and all that due to COVID.
I think for a marketer's perspective, for a marketer, life couldn't be more exciting than today. When we were a marketer, the choices that we had, the tools that we had were much more limited. We had to wait for an opportunity to make a TV commercial, then wait 6 months to see how it's done. Today, the things that we can do on digital, the way we can set things up and do things at a rapid pace, get rapid feedback, experiment like never before, do much more than just put out a message out there. It's a fascinating time to be a marketer. I mean, I'm so glad to be in marketing because there's so much to be done. And as they say, I think as more and more data comes in, I think the ability to use more and more art and, kind of balancing the art and science to really do kick-ass work, which is also successful. Just, I think, to be able to consistently do good work has just improved so much, and no longer in an era where you have to spray and pray. I think just ability to process data and convert it into wonderful insight. I think it's a great time to be a marketer. So many opportunities. Embrace, just experiment, embrace, go to a place which is growing and there's a lot to learn. Don't go by brand, but go by opportunity. I think would be the kind of one statement. Don't burn yourself while you're learning, because I really love the perspective that Molly gave to break out your life into two parts, right? The first 20 and the next 20, to say the first 20 learn, and if you're in the journey, think about what you want to do in the next 20. Of course, it's more applicable to kind of a little bit more traditional careers, and non-traditional careers might have a different path. But across the board, I think the provocation is to say, when you get where you want to be, are you really successful, and how you prepare for that, I think is really the mantra. And for a young graduate, I think today is the time where there's so much more opportunity. And maybe if you think and know what you want to do, really there's so much more opportunity. So yes, it is intensely competitive, and hence we understand that the stakes are high. But I think what I as an employer look for when I go back and see, evaluate young people, is beyond just proficiency, is now desire and passion. And I think if you're able to show that in what you want to do, then all doors will open. Today more than ever, we are in a fantastic place, a country that's growing faster than most of the countries in the world. Such a large business, so much is happening. India is the place to be.
Good, yeah. So this is from a guy who's come down from Zurich talking to Indian marketers, right? So let me just close, Anil, for those great journey we started from from Baliganj, Toliganj, and then we went all the way to Chennai, and then back to Kolkata, and then we went, I think, to
Kerala.
No, we went to Maharashtra, right? You took us on a journey to a district near Goa, then we went to Kochi, then we came to Chennai, and then came back to Bombay, and then you took us to Zurich, and then you brought us back. So that has been an absolutely fabulous, great journey. In between, we understood challenges of launching brands, about facing competition and what you need to do. Also taking a global brand and making it a success in a really competitive Indian market, and changing the landscape of the cookie business, and of course always having to meet your budget, not going to sleep if you hit only 92%. So Anil, just to a special thanks from all of us here. And this is Ambi Parameswaran signing off on yet another fabulous episode, though I'm saying it myself, a fabulous episode on Be Positive on etbranding.com. So thank you, Anil, for joining us. Thank you very much. And
thank you for having me. It was a pleasure. This conversation as a senior alumnus, again, I had to ensure that I have to do my bit. And thank you. Just enjoy the conversation.
Thank you, yeah. I think that was really great. So thank you very much, Anil.